Hi, Amanda.
Hi,
Can you hear?
Peter. I can hear you. Yes. Can't see you though.
I'm loving this technology. We like working remotely. However, to all of our audience and our guests, sometimes we have some technical glitches, and this appears to be one of those from a video perspective.
Sorry. Oh, you can't get
Ho-
your video?
Hopefully, that'll get rectified soon. Let's
Okay.
give that one more try. There
There
we
we
go.
are. We see you. Welcome.
Great to see you, and great to be here.
Yes. Likewise.
Are we live for our audience at the moment?
I believe we are. Yes, we are. Yep. I just have
Terrific.
confidence
Well, let's
in that.
jump
Okay.
in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a quick introduction. I'm Peter Danikel with Capital Market Partnerships here at Core Connects. And my co host is Amanda Grange, who happens to be a transfer agent extraordinaire. Our
Thank you.
topic for the next 30 minutes is the investor journey behind the scenes. What
Mm-hmm.
that really means is what happens when that investor hits the button. It's not as exciting as some of the foreground information that gets shared, but we're going to tell you what that's involved because um, what's really what it really takes is an entire team, and
Mm-hmm.
from an issuer, from the investor to the broker dealers to the transfer agent to the escrow providers. Once that issuer hits an invest button, all these things come together, and those things behind the scenes is what the technology is really all about. A lot goes into a live offering, and what we're really talking about is investor trust. Um, um, to those issuers, to the companies that they want to invest in, and in doing so, again, a lot goes on behind the scenes. So let's take a look at what some of those components might be. So, Amanda, you're the transfer agent. Maybe you can
Mm-hmm.
give us a little bit of insight um, what the transfer agent role is in all of this. And I guess if we start from the beginning, um, prior to an offering, the transfer agent gets involved and has a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with a variety of key stakeholders. Um, what is that role if we look at the beginning of that?
Well, I like to say the transfer agent is kind of like the caboose, though. I'm kind of at the end of everything because once the raise is done, I'm the one that manages that end result of investors seeing their investments, CEOs and corporations seeing their raise live on a cap table, and but before it does go live, I actually do work closely with the companies and those that are about to do their offerings. And just my main role at the beginning is to really help them get set up before the offering does go live. And there's some critical things that need to be done in order to really help offerings be set up and ready to go before they start. And if they're not done correctly, a lot of the raises hit a lot of roadblocks because of that, that a lot of companies aren't
Mhm.
aware of. Um,
So, is it different between an issuer who's never done a raise before and an issuer that's doing a second or third raise from a crowdfunding perspective, or
I would
just
say
shareholders?
Y- yeah, at the beginning, before every raise is unique, and it also would depend on the broker dealer you're using. How did you use one before, or is this the first time you're using a broker dealer? There's a lot that a broker dealer will do, especially at the beginning stages and throughout the raise, and um, if you use a platform before, or if you didn't,
Mhm.
that will make a huge impact on the raise as well and getting started and ready to go. My role is basically for the company is to set them up. If you're using a platform, it would be to set you up on the platform, make sure all
Mhm.
your securities are set up, make sure your class of shares are set up for your raise, and more importantly than that, if you're a company that has a lot of investors in your historical cap table, and it's very important that that historical cap table, if you're using a platform, that they are uploaded and on the cap table before you go live. And we've run into
Mhm.
situations where a lot of companies have not done that, and it's easy to get caught up in not doing that, because a lot of times when you're about to do a raise and go live, that's where your head is. You're already down the road, trying to raise the capital, and that's where your head is. And if you're not thinking about those other investors, that they may
Sure.
actually invest again in your new raise, and
Mhm.
if they come on and see their investment with your new raise, but they don't see their old investments, then you're causing fires that don't need to be there. So my job, I
Okay.
like to say, is I like to help companies put those fires out before they even begin, before you do go live. So
So,
I
so,
yep, go ahead.
so if I'm going to wear the issuer's hat
Hmm.
as we talk on this investor journey. So I'm an issuer. Already have a bunch of shareholders.
Hmm.
I've never done a raise before to the private marketplace through a Reg CF or a Reg A,
Hmm.
or some of us like to say Reg A plus, because we do think it's a super way to raise capital in the market.
Definitely
But
is,
it's
yeah.
Sarah uh, provided us. It is a Reg A from a regulation perspective. So
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of shareholders. Do I need to who do I need to communicate with even before I start my next raise? Do you get involved at that stage or?
I do. And I work hard at really communicating with, let's say, you, the CEO, to help you through that process. So, as a transfer agent, it is my job to make sure that your previous investors understand what's going to happen, and what they're going to see. And just help them get on on a platform, or on whatever platform that you're using, so that they'll not only see their old investments, they'll see their new investments at the same time.
Okay.
And that's critical, because I know if I was an investor and I invested in your company, and this is the third time I'm investing in your company, but this may be the first time that you're using a platform to see their investments. If I log on and see a new investment and I don't see my other two investments as well, I'm going to wonder what happened to them.
Okay.
Even though, mhm,
So part of this is about that investor journey. So
exactly.
I'm the investor. I've placed my investment, and I'm sitting at home and I'm going, what happened? So we talk about platforms. We talk about transfer agents such as yourself managing tens or thousands, or in some cases, I've heard up to 1 million shareholders. That used to be
Yes.
a very scary thing historically from any company going, I've got a private company. Why do I want 1 million shareholders?
Mm.
Um, how do we manage it today, and what's changed so that you can do your job? And then we'll touch on what the broker dealer has to do prior to all this.
I would say technology has changed. We've gone from paper to e-certs. There are no paper certificates anymore, which is one of the biggest changes. And technology also allows you as an investor to not only see your investment, but with a good platform, you'd be able to, at the click of a button, even initiate a transfer, if under the guidelines you're able
Mhm.
to transfer your investment to, let's say, family, whatever the rules are under your investment. You'd be able to do that, and a platform, a good platform, will initiate that transfer immediately, and then that process gets rolling. Whereas before, you'd be mailing the information in to do something similar to that, which would slow that process down quite a
So
bit.
the CEO, the CFO, um, once those investors are into the system, they don't have to go and constantly be communicating with them from a quick, easy question such as, well, it may not be an easy question. It's a shareholder question, and say, I'd like to give my shares to my grandkids, for example.
Yes, the
Um,
CEO doesn't have to get involved. The company doesn't have to get involved at all. A lot of people will reach out to the company, and then we will encourage them to have their investor reach out to myself, and we will get the process rolling. And either I or our support team, we have support teams are critical on any platform, to really answer investors' questions immediately in terms of things like that, like a transfer.
So it sounds like it's all about the convergence of technology.
It is,
It's,
yeah.
it's all about market awareness that investors with the new regulations, and we've heard throughout the day Regulation CF and Reg A allow private investors to invest small amounts or larger amounts.
Mm.
So as part of that journey, I click the button, the
Hmm.
shares go somewhere, but they're not really shares yet, are they? I've collected a whole
No.
bunch of information from those investors, and here's where the broker dealer has to come into play.
Exactly. That's why I'm called the caboose. So you can fill us in on what the broker dealer.
So the broker dealer in a Reg CF and a Reg A offering extremely critical, and I think some of the earlier panels were touching on this. The broker dealer protects the issuer
Hmm.
to a large degree because the broker dealer has to do the KYC, know your customer, the ID verification, the anti money laundering, the watch list. So, unlike, and I wouldn't like to, I don't want to say, unlike the olden days, I mean, the broker dealer's main role was to do a lot of road work and meeting accredited investors and meeting small groups of investors. Today, the role has expanded quite a bit. It's
Hmm.
not as much trying to raise capital on behalf of the issuers themselves, albeit some broker dealers still maintain that role to some capacity. But to a big part, if you're dealing with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of shareholders, they have to have the ability to do the ID verification, and technology again has facilitated that today. I think we've seen more Reg A offerings in the last 12 months than the last, well, since inception. Um, and that's to a large degree is one, it's been customer adoption, customer awareness, or investor awareness that they can invest in companies on the internet. But the other one is really, again, technology has facilitated it. So the
Hmm.
broker dealer, they do their ID verification, they do their KYC, they do their AML. Then from where what goes on from there? Once they say approved, what goes on, and when do you get a chance to actually see that certificate?
The word I look for is not approved. The word I look for is closed.
Closed.
When I hear the word closed, that's when I become involved. Once a transaction is fully closed, that means that everything they, like you say, they passed the KML, the KYC, the AML process is done. Their funds have been cleared, and the transaction is closed. It now populates the cap table. So then
So,
I work closely with the broker dealer throughout a raise to make sure that compliance, which is what the broker dealer deals with, and the cap table, which is my side of the raise, that those are reconciling. So what the broker dealer is closing and the transactions that they're dealing with are actually getting onto the cap table. And what a lot of people don't understand is that when it comes to compliance, I have no access to compliance and what the broker dealer sees. The broker dealer also has no access to the TA side of things, which is the cap table. They cannot see the cap table. So we have to work closely together to make sure that we reconcile that what they're closing and what is populating on the cap table is real time correct. So sometimes there are things that we have to reconcile. Sometimes one might
mhm.
not populate on the cap table, and we'll just make sure, or if there an investor will reach out and will say to me, it's listed incorrectly. For example, maybe we got the corporation name wrong, maybe they
Mhm.
gave the wrong email address. So we work closely together to make sure we get the right information and it's reconciled as quickly as possible for that investor, because like I said, that investor is seeing their investment in real time. So as soon as it gets populated to a cap table, if it's an online cap table, they're going to reach out immediately and say there's something wrong with their investment. So if they see something, so we do our
So when
best to really reconcile with the broker dealer.
so when does the money move from obviously every company, every issuer wants to know, when do I get my money, and when do those shareholders go onto the cap table?
It depends
Um,
on the raise. So in terms of when an issuer gets their money, it depends on the raise. Some is ongoing, some is at the end of the raise. Like I said, I have no, I don't deal with that part of it. I am like the end result of the cap table and just deal with the cap table side of things. Um,
and that's really super important to note then.
mhm.
So if the broker dealer is doing all of their compliance, they're also engaged with another third party. And I think a lot of the issuers need to recognize that
Mm-hmm.
on many raises and most raises in relationship to a funding platform, which we're certainly familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
um, the broker dealer, the issuer, and the escrow provider, they
Mm-hmm.
actually get into a trilateral agreement. And
Yes.
that trilateral agreement helps to facilitate where the funds are being held at various times prior to not only shares being released, but when the funds can be released from escrow and go into the issuer's bank account. So that relationship, and it's really, really important for the issuer themselves to just understand that, hey, you're going to enter into an agreement. You have the option to select your broker dealer. They're going
Mm-hmm.
to discuss the services they're going to provide. The regulations, in particular Reg A, allow you to have investors from all over the world. So what
Mm-hmm.
that means is that broker dealer wants to make sure that they want to work with you on a given issuance,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
and you want to be able to work with that broker dealer. So you're going to have a relationship with that broker dealer in doing so. Not all
Mm-hmm.
broker dealers may want to work work with on a Reg A, for example, and take investments from certain countries. It doesn't mean that these countries are not sanctioned countries. They just may not be set up with it, for example. Um,
Exactly.
it also opens up the door for things like, and maybe you can tell me from a transfer agent perspective, what about I'm on the Canadian side of the fence right now. I have the Canadian dollar. I'm investing in a Reg A offering or Reg C offering for that matter. I'm investing US Canadian dollars into buy this stock. How does that affect you as a transfer agent at all?
Doesn't really affect me as a transfer agent because I'm dealing, like I said, again, at the end result. So it depends on the offering. A good platform will be able to handle all different um, types of currency. Um,
So
so
that's more of a platform question, and the
it would be, yeah,
issuers should be
exactly.
aware of different platforms that they want to
Yeah.
work with.
hmm
Okay.
In terms
Um,
of connecting, and if we just go back to just my relationship with the broker dealer, it's important that that relationship starts early. And that depends on what type of platform you're using. For example, there are different ways that you can have a cap table populated, even if it's online. If you're not using an invest button means the process is very seamless and the cap table gets populated automatically, and there's not a lot of manual work going on. But if you're not using an invest button, and then it's very critical that a transfer agent works closely with the broker dealer because they will need to get all of the closed transactions from the broker dealer to populate your cap table. And that would be done manually by the transfer agent. So it's important that you understand what type of platform you're using and how your cap table gets populated before that race starts.
so the more automated the platform, the
hmm
easier and more seamless it may be to
It is,
connect
yeah.
the dots between the broker dealer,
hmm
the escrow
And the transfer
provider,
agent. Yes,
and the transfer
exactly.
agent, and
That's right.
most importantly, at the end of the day, the shareholder, because
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
visibility from a shareholder's perspective is, I want to see the status of my shares,
Yeah.
and being somebody who's old enough to know the status of some of my share certificates happen to be in a drawer in the bottom somewhere, and I can't find the
Exactly.
company, which is going to segue into the next conversation about shareholder communication. And it takes a variety of stages from pre, post, and
It does.
pre and after the raise as well.
Yeah.
What about things like, and I know it doesn't affect you as much because you're at the end of the caboose, as you
Like,
eloquently put it. Um, uh, when we talk about things like, you hear about things like banking rails and how a platform works with banking rails, and me as the investor, and I hit that invest button, and it's going to ask me a series of questions, and those questions might be, well, besides who am I, where do I live, am I accredited investor, a non-accredited investor, because that's part of that journey that they have to take. The
hmm
nice thing about the regulations is it's very forgiving from a um, well, it's actually just a few clicks. I just say I'm an accredited investor or I'm a non-accredited investor. Platforms that I'm familiar with, obviously I have a bias, but um, they automatically calculate how much I can invest as an investor.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
a platform makes it pretty seamless, and most of the platforms I believe do that today. If I make $50,000 a year, it's going to say, "Hey, Peter, you can invest approximately
Hmm.
$5,000 in this investment, or
Yeah.
10% of my annual income." But
Yeah.
the math is done for them. So the
Which is great as an investor, because when you're ready to invest, the easier and the more seamless it is, the m- I think the more times you'll want to invest, because it makes that process more a lot seamless, more seamless than
Well,
um,
and today we're just so used to a click of a button. I mean, we get so used to
exactly. Yeah.
working on mobile apps. I can actually invest on my telephone.
Yes.
So if I have to run around the house looking for a particular piece of documentation that's not in my head, for example, I should be able to look on my wallet and say, okay, I need my driver's license. That's all I need
Yeah.
is just the number. Unlike some investments today that are non-securities based or not what we're talking about, I know from experience, like a crypto investment, I've got to photograph my passport. I've got to upload my
Yeah.
passport. I have to
Yes.
wait 2 weeks
Oh,
for, to, well, certainly days to get verification. If not, but definitely hours for sure. I mean, I've had
yeah.
sometimes days, sometimes I don't know what's going on. But with the new platforms, that investor journey is simply, it's
It
literally, it's a
It
2 minute
is
journey.
simple, but I do feel bad for the broker dealer, because even though it is just a click, there is still a process that, you once you hit that click to invest, the process isn't instant. There's then the broker dealer takes over, and going through compliance still does take a little bit longer than people understand. And I know an investor, once you click that investment, you think, okay, I should see my investment now, and it's not that
No, and
simple.
you brought up
Yeah,
a super critical point. There's a lot of variables from
there
a
is.
client's
Yeah,
perspective,
yeah.
especially if I have if I've got a foreign investor or I've got an investor where I'm missing some information. The investor
Hmm.
mistypes some information, and
Anything. Yeah, yeah,
text, yes,
yeah,
sure, and the
yeah,
outreach program. There's nothing wrong that the investor had did, but other than the keystroke, that's the
yeah.
value, additional value that the broker dealer brings to that.
Exactly.
They're
Yeah.
doing that. Compliance doesn't mean I'm a good guy or a bad guy. It just means
Not at all.
I'm the guy because
We just want to make your who you are. I want
yeah,
to know
that
that,
digital
yeah, you
certificate.
are who you are.
So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
critical.
It
Um,
is. Yeah.
but generally, for the investor's perspective, it's a 2 minute process.
Exactly.
From a
Yeah.
team perspective and an issuer perspective, the issuer, you're going to be engaged with a broker dealer. You're
Yeah.
going to be engaged with the escrow provider.
Hmm.
Um, Little questions to ask.
Yeah.
Geez, if I want to be issuing my securities to all 50 states, I better make sure that my broker dealer is registered in all 50 states.
That's right.
Little things like that are,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, getting into things based on the industry that you might be in. Can
Hmm.
that particular investor, or are we, are you set up? Let's say, am I set up with a bank, for example, that's going to be my escrow provider? And
Hmm.
I happen to be in a space that might be a little questionable, such as the cannabis space. I say questionable, maybe questionable to the bank. It's completely legal in the states that you may be
Hmm.
offering it. But those are key questions that you need to ask up front.
Hmm.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
because again, it takes a team and it takes a lot of stakeholders. And if they're all doing their job seamlessly, technology just pulls it all together.
It
But
does. Yeah.
the issuer does need to ask the questions up front. Um, Payment rails, banking side of things, people hear these questions. So that investor journey, it's really up to the issuer, the types of payments that they really want to take. The
Hmm.
less onerous it is to that investor, the better. But um, ACH, credit cards, crypto to fiat, you may or may not want to embark upon that.
Hmm.
But many issuers today in different vertical industries or spaces, again, like when you look at the crypto space, maybe they have a large audience and they want to have crypto to fiat offerings. So some of the platforms, many of the platforms provide that and facilitate that. But
Hmm.
just because the platform provider does it doesn't mean that your broker dealer is going to do it, and it doesn't mean
That's
that
right.
your escrow provider is going to do it, or
Yeah.
the banks are going to do it. So you just need to be aware and ask all the questions up front, and then you can have seamless raise. But all these things behind
Exactly.
the scene are seamless, but ask the questions up front first. I
That's
have a
right.
question,
Yeah.
a question here on, and it was to do with, well, we kind of answered ourselves right now. Was the crypto to fiat? Yeah, so it's really crypto to fiat is something that goes on today. May not be utilized as much as a lot of people think,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Key takeaways, because we're hitting on the minutes, the half hour here. What recommendation would you make, or what are the biggest issues that you've seen? Because you might be at the end of the caboose here, so to speak,
Yeah.
but everything got filtered down to you, and maybe that could have been circumvented up front.
Um, for the issuer, one of the things I always want to stress for an issuer is, especially if you do have a lot of investors in your company before you go live on a new raise, is to make sure, if you're using a platform that is real time platform, to make sure that those investors are on the platform before you start that raise. And I said it at the beginning, but I just want to stress it again now before we go. And I kind of liken it to painting a house. When you paint your house, you do all of the prep work first, and it's the prep work that makes the job easy, makes painting easy, makes it look good. If you don't do that prep work, then you're just going to end up with a mess at the end and wish you hadn't even started it. So all I just say to issuers, just make sure you do your prep work first, and then that raise is just going to go smooth. And that goes right from, like you said, peer broker dealer, transfer agent. Just do the prep work and it'll go smooth, is I guess how I would end it. So I think we've gone over time, and
I had one
it's been
kicker
fun.
question, um,
Okay.
and it was just, and I think it was very interesting topic. However, how does Core Connects bring together these stakeholders within the ecosystem, from First Fruits Entertainment? Yeah, it's a good question. We're a technology platform. Core Connects brings together the various stakeholder, and we facilitate the ability for the broker dealer to do their job. They have a dashboard that they can log into. They take a look at it. I'm not here to do a commercial. This is just how it works.
Mhm.
So the broker dealer can log in and more efficiently do their KYC. So they have a dashboard they can look at.
Right.
The issuer themselves, you have a dashboard where you can log in and look at all your cap table, manage your cap table from a viewpoint perspective, have an outreach ability to reach to your shareholders from the back end. So those are two ways that we bring it together. From
Mhm.
things like the escrow providers and the banks, we set up relationships with these as our core partners, and
Mhm.
those relationships we introduce to the issuers and to the investment community at large. And from that perspective, we try to keep it, basically we're the that hub and spoke, and we're the hub, and the
Yeah.
spokes are all the pieces in the rays. They're
Yeah.
the So whatever you really need, right from the
Mhm.
start to the end of it, that's what we bring together from an ecosystem perspective. But the technology
Exactly.
platform helps to facilitate all of those third parties to do their job better. Um,
Exactly.
so on that note, we've hit our timeline.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it answered that question. My apologies for having the technical issues getting on here. We're going to be jumping into our next session here, with Jason Foucault and myself, and I'm hopefully going to be able to remain and not lose my connection. I'm not going to do a surface commercial of late. I've had some challenges.
All
But
right.
that, so Amanda, thank you so very much. And
Thank you. It was a
hopefully it's
pleasure.
insightful for our audience. I know the
Yeah.
panelists earlier have been absolutely terrific, but there is some things that pull it all together at the back end, and that's technology. Um, and the investors have a journey, and all we want to do is communicate the information to them. So
Mhm.
that being said, I'm going to move on to the next session.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yep. Bye.